Tom Parnell. He's the head of media and film at a company called ProDirect. You might know it as one of the largest sporting companies in the UK. He gave us his thoughts on the tennis world and also shared some of his experiences with some of its stars.
There's a bit of a soft sell angle where if you get a good piece of content with an athlete that generates good views, then people are going to want to know where that's come from.
How much do you think they actually value the product the way it is being sold?
I know for a fact a few of the athletes don't use the specific racket that they are said to have used. Someone left like a lasting impression on me for a negative reason, and then I actually had the opportunity to film them a couple of years later and they were completely different. I think we wrapped up filming and he stayed for an extra half an hour just hitting and chatting. The most hard-hitting ones, it's just him walking out of the locker room nice and slowly, like slow-mo, dramatic lights, and talking about all his mistakes and said, I missed 1,000 free throws in my career. I missed this. I missed the game-winning shot X amount of times.
Yeah.
You know what? I succeeded because I failed. Those little 10 minutes, 20 minutes with those athletes, you can still see the focus and what it took for them to get there.
So Tom, we'll take it away straight off the bat with, could you tell us a bit about your role? So what do you do? How does that relate to ProDirect?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently the head of the film department at ProDirect Sport. I manage a team. There's 9 of us that all create content around launches for products. Obviously, tennis being one of them, but it goes across, like you said, football, rugby, running, cricket, basketball, a whole host of sports. And I head up that team and basically fly them around the world creating content with sports athletes to promote the next big product that a brand is launching.
Fantastic. And when you say the next big product, is it always on the basis of an item or perhaps a series of things that promotional content comes in, or do these things happen fairly regularly with the same people?
So when I first started, I've been in the business now for 7 years. When I first started, everything was product. Things have developed quite a lot since. I mean, YouTube's been a big thing for a while, but it's really taken off over the last 4 or 5 years, where people are making, let's be honest, big money from being a YouTuber. And ProDirect obviously saw that there was a potential there in the market. So with that, we've kind of built a bit of a fan base and creating content for content's sake, which, yes, normally it is around a product, but a lot of the times there's a bit of a soft sell angle where if you get a good piece of content with an athlete that generates good views, then people are going to want to know where that's come from, and they start looking at, who's ProDirect Tennis, and they go to your website anyway. So things have sort of developed in that way, but the brands give us access. So they'll say, Babolat, for instance, they've got the new Pure Aero come out. They'll say, we've recently, I've just had to send one of the lads to Paris to film with Alcaraz. They had a little demo day with the new Pure Aero, and it was Tony Nadal, so Nadal's coach and uncle, obviously, who were there. And I sent 2 of the lads out to go and film some stuff around the new Pure Aero. But in that, we get time with Alcaraz to do our own content where we can do a bit that's based around the product, but then also a nice sort of intimate piece that might be able to show a bit more about them and their personality.
It's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of the niche that tennis has is the fact that the personalities of the players are such a big part of it, right? It's such a big part of the sport, sort of how that person is dealing mentally out there on their own, etc. every week. But yeah, it's interesting to see how, you know, product placement, it relates to that. The commercial angle of tennis has got to build off of that, right? One question I've always had when it comes to products that players use and then obviously promote in relation to a company is, how much do you see, or how much do you think they actually value the product the way it is being sold? Or do you think that it's just okay, well, this is a deal and this is my obligation? How do you feel they sort of relate to that? A tough question, I know.
Yeah, that is a very tough question, because you're getting me to put myself in the mindset of the athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it varies. So I know, telling you trade secrets here, but I know for a fact a few of the athletes don't use the specific racket that they are said to use. They have got a much older version that they have got used to throughout their time playing tennis, and have just had color ups to match and little tweaks to make it look like the new version. There's other athletes that I know aren't that fussy and can just pick up the new version and just hit away, and they're absolutely fine. So yeah, that, going back to your question, is a difficult one, because I'd imagine someone like, Djokovic signed for Asics a while ago. I don't know if it was like shoe range. I don't know if he's still with Asics, but he had his name on a shoe. So in that respect, I'm guessing he is invested in it. Whereas if it's just a specific, generic racket brand, there it's a bit more of a, I'm here to do my work, my contract. Having said that, every tennis player I have ever met, including ones that have a bit of attitude on court, so maybe a Nick Kyrgios or someone like that, but everyone, honestly, including Nick, like, they've all been so down to earth, so humble. They've got a lot of time for you. Whereas there are other athletes I've met in other sports that may not be so giving, shall we say, with their time and their attitude, really, and how they approach stuff on set. Whereas the tennis players, I haven't got a bad word to say about them. Everyone's very collected and well presented, if that makes sense.
I think, that was, funny enough, you've answered a question I was going to come on to, so I'm really glad you did. I'd argue that I think the reason for that is probably because tennis players are maybe up there with the most intelligent athletes. That's the way I would see it. The reason I see it that way is because tennis is such a complicated game, and there's so much to take in and process constantly all the time. You have to be fairly switched on, and with that potentially comes how you present yourself, right? And I'd like to think that no one wants to present themselves as as not the person that you want to see on the TV, for example. At the same time, I'm sure there are a couple of players who manage that every now and then, unfortunately.
I think also, but I think, to jump in there, I think it's an etiquette thing. So tennis is a sport that has a discipline to it. It has an etiquette. I know it's a completely different sport and it's a contact sport, but like rugby, you're taught to respect the ref. You call the ref sir. So it has a respect there, and I think that is drilled into you from an early age. Whereas maybe a sport like football is not so much, so that when it comes across in person, and I'm not tarring them all with the same brush, because some footballers I've met are lovely, but they're definitely across the board, the tennis players, rugby players, stuff like that have that etiquette in their sport, come across in that way in person as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think, a lot of time these individual sports as well, they do produce characters better as well. And that's what's slightly nice about tennis. You get to see the characters more. And and I'm glad that that is actually portrayed, because one of my biggest fears has always been, how do these people seem off court, and how do they seem? They always say never meet your heroes, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I'm not really sure, because there are loads of videos out there of all of these, regardless of the sport, of these athletes doing wonderful things and also doing horrible things. But for me, that's just because they're human, and to make a judgment out of that based on one interaction is a little bit harsh. But we have to cut them some slack, right?
I 100% agree. I think we're all human. We're all going to have off days. And if you meet that person potentially on their off day, you're going to think, well, they've come across not how I expected them to. But the next day you could meet them, they'll be a completely different person. I have had that in the past as well, where I've met someone and gone, because you always get those questions, right? Like when people find out what I do, who's the worst person you filmed? Who's I always get that. And someone left like a lasting impression on me for a negative reason. And then I actually had the opportunity to film them a couple of years later, and they were a completely different person. I was like, oh, they were really lovely. And it just so happened, it must have just been an off day that day I met them.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Interestingly, I'm not going to ask who that person is, because that's potentially a question that you wouldn't want to answer, but because your job's all about relationships, right?
Yes.
But who would you say has stood out in the past for the best reasons? Who have you had a genuine connection with on a shoot? Who's maybe been genuinely interested? Is there anyone that comes to mind when I ask that?
Yeah, in the tennis world, Frances Tiafoe.
Really?
Yeah, so we did a thing back in Wimbledon 2, maybe 3 years ago, and Nike, I think Adidas do the same thing, but they put on this Nike house where all the athletes that are with Team Nike come collect their gear for the tournament. There is a big house. There was like a pool at the back, a tennis court, all branded Nike, spray painted, like really cool. We got the opportunity to go there and film some content whilst the athletes come and collect their stuff and just have some time with them. And Frances Tiafoe was so laid back, so chilled out, just wanted to chat to us about what we were doing, and like, oh, cool. So what do you guys do? Like, oh, are you going to be at the tournament? Like, he just was genuinely interested. Which was really nice, because when someone shows you that kind of appreciation and understanding and being on there, like he was, oh, you're on my level, like I'm not anyone. It just was, it made the shoot run so smoothly. We could have a laugh. There was no tension, which on some of these things you get 5-10 minutes with an athlete, and you've proposed to the brand you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to get that done in 5 minutes, and everyone is go, go, go. And there was none of that, because he genuinely wanted. I think we wrapped up filming and he stayed for an extra half an hour just hitting and chatting. And
nice.
Yeah. So
that's really great.
Heather Watson, another one. Yeah. We did a carpool karaoke with her in New York. It was like the US Open. So we picked her up from her hotel and drove her down to, I think the training ground was like Flushing Meadows or something in New York.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And we drove her down. I was in the front seat, turned around. We had my presenter and her in there. And she got so into it. She was just singing in carpool karaoke, and we were just chatting away. And it didn't feel like an interview. It just felt like two people having a laugh, catching up. And it made for a much better piece of content as well, because she was just relaxed and sort of, showed a different side to her.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that, especially from a British player, right? Because you always want to know that your homegrown players are the ones that, people can really, vibe with, get on with, especially in, an out of tennis scenario, even though we are talking about tennis specifically. Cool. That all of that information is so interesting. I don't think a lot of that I did not know before, especially with specific players as well. You don't get to hear these stories a lot of the time. It's not part of your job to tell those stories either. You're telling a story for a commercial reason, not necessarily a human reason or a draw some fans reason. But that's really nice, and I'm hoping that people listening to this are finding that really powerful as well. What I want to know actually now is what your relationship with tennis is. So obviously we're a tennis podcast, so I've got to ask you your specific relationship with tennis. Yeah. However that may be, it doesn't need to be powerful in its own sense as well. And if you can remember it, you said you had a memory of a goldfish, so maybe if you can remember it, when was the first time you played?
So I must have played... As a caveat, before I answer that, if I wish I found tennis earlier, I played. I'm just going to go off on a tangent here. I played ice hockey when I was a kid. I played from 8 years old until I was 18, 19. I played ice hockey and skater hockey. Got to quite a high level, but that just took pure focus. And then I think I just started messing around after school with a group of lads like 14, 15. And then I didn't play tennis again then until I started this job. And
really,
I was 6 weeks into Pro Direct, and me and who is quite a close friend now, who loves his tennis, we went out to do the US Open. And I think that was when we did the Heather Watson one. And we were out there for 10 days and we got invited to a Babolat Pure Drive event. And it was this cool sort of like warehousey vibe in New York. They had like blue lights, like neon lights, and they were all trying out the Pure Drive. And we got given a free racket at this event. So I got given a Pure Drive. I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to start having a knock. And then I've been playing again ever since. I mean, when I say playing, it's the loose term of the word playing. So I've just been...
You should be loose. That's how you make it.
Yeah, that's... Yeah. But no, I just found a love for it. And then my son, we've got him into it and he likes playing, and that kind of keeps me wanting to play as well. He obviously... You coach him, so yep. Yeah, he's loving it and has a real like. I see a smile on his face when he does it, so yeah. It's nice to see. And I'm the same. Like I enjoy playing again. Whereas I now look back and wish I'd found it earlier, and I might be better now if I'd found it earlier.
That is the case with everyone. If I'd found it earlier, who knows? Maybe I wouldn't even be in science at all. Maybe I'd be doing something actually tennis related, because I only started playing when I was 16. That's when I first sort of picked up a racket properly, and started going, okay, yeah, I actually want to sort of maybe do this weekly, and then it just grew from there. And when I hit about 18, I just became an obsession. It was literally 3 or 4 times a week, if not every day.
Oh, really?
A ball, yeah. And that's the only way you can get better sort of quickly, effectively. Yeah. The more times you hit a ball, the better you get at it, with a tiny bit of coaching in between. That's my opinion. The more you play, the better you get, but just need a little bit of help along the way, and that's why us coaches actually still have a job.
Yeah, I mean, I need to tap you up soon, because I think that's exactly where I've gone wrong. I've taught myself and given myself bad habits.
Yeah, I always find that these things never tend to be bad habits. It's that thing, right? Because you can't see yourself as you hit a tennis ball, no. Because it's such a variation of movements, and that makes it so difficult to then watch, control, and then change it as you're doing it. Like it's too much. That's why you need that outside perspective.
Oh, I know I can't see myself, because in my head I'm hitting that ball like Federer, and then when it shanks off the frame, I'm like, oh no, I'm definitely not like Federer.
He has shanked a few in the past. Don't let that put you down, because even the stars make mistakes. Yeah.
Blue moon though, mine's every other shot.
Okay, yeah. Well, that might be the difference then.
Yeah.
Although he is retired now, you never know. He could be hitting them more regularly.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, and it's nice to hear that relationship with tennis is still there, because I think a lot of people find that they do enjoy the sport. It's really difficult sport, but as a result, it's quite rewarding, I think, whether you play it competitively or just for fun. I think a lot of people, especially at the lower level, as soon as you hit that one good shot, okay, maybe you start to get a delusion that you can hit it every time, but you hit that one good shot, you're going to think about it for weeks.
Oh,
and that doesn't matter what level you're at.
I think that's honestly why I started getting into it, because like I said, we're over in New York, and my mate Pete started feeding me balls, and as soon as I hit one from the baseline, and felt that pop, I was like, "Oh, I like this." But that's what got me into it. It was actually getting into this job and having that opportunity just to go along to something like that and picking up a racket and playing.
Yeah, there's nothing like the sound coming off the strings of a truly well struck ball.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an advertisement thing in there using sound. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you how to do what your job is. So, like, sort of the last thing that I was kind of interested in asking. Obviously, this is more specific to your job, so I want you to nerd out a little bit about this.
Okay.
Sort of for my benefit more than anything, but yes, for everyone to listen as well. But with your commercial hat on, and knowing that you obviously have a good eye for what looks good on the camera, how people want to see that sort of thing, what do you think is something that people should know or think about when they start tennis? It's a bit of a tangential question, and I want you to just run with it, whatever comes to mind.
What a question. What people should know.
What should people? What do you think someone should know if they're starting tennis, with a view of, what you think looks good? What's something that you would necessarily advise from your position?
That's a tough one. Like seeing what the pros do, and not everyone's going to try and emulate a pro. People are just going to go and play it for fun, right? So, but I just think how their determination and what they go through, and the repetition of just trying to practice that shot. I think, like, from what looks good, I don't think there's anything, for me personally, anything sweeter than seeing someone, even like Kyrgios, with he's got such a awkward, not awkward, but weird, quick forehand. There's no bring back. It just whips. And I think in terms of what looks good, there's nothing sweeter than seeing someone drill a forehand just down the line. But that's obviously, it's so much practice involved in that. Like even Emma Raducanu, when she's come in and attacked Wimbledon, seeing a player that can just attack and just balls to the wall, go for it, like have no fear. That is what I enjoy and what I think looks good. That kind of attacking tennis. And I know there is a position for everyone in every style, and an Andy Murray that just keeps getting the ball back and makes you make the unforced error. But that attacking mindset of no fear and just go all out, I think that's for me, like, it's what I tried to do in my game. Again, not good enough to do it and keep pushing the ball wide, but that mindset just to keep going after it again and again and again. And eventually, those ones, you keep doing that, eventually they're going to start going in.
That is a fantastic answer. You're quite right. I think people should not be afraid. I think that's the key thing, and I try and do that when I'm coaching someone as well, especially if they're starting out and they're a bit of a beginner. Don't be afraid to make that mistake, because you probably have to make a few thousand mistakes on that one shot before it's going to start to feel right. And some people are so afraid these days of making mistakes. It's definitely something that seems to be changing in schools, I've noticed as well. Like when you're coaching some of the younger kids, like some of them look petrified of getting it wrong or making that mistake, and you're just like, no. Some of them fall over, and instead of laughing, they're like, oh my God, what do I do? And it's like, that's okay. You've gone for a shot. You've been brave there. And I think that's actually where I think this question's worked really well for you, because your answer is probably what you're trying to portray every day with the products and the mental side of the athletes is bravery, no fear, confidence, go for it. Yeah. Which, yeah, absolutely. I think, brilliant. Yeah, that's exactly what people should do more when they're starting tennis. They should just go for it.
It's about freeing yourself up, right? You've got to free yourself up to make those mistakes and not be afraid to, because, the biggest thing in life, you only learn by making mistakes. One of my favorite commercials that there's ever been is a Nike commercial, basketball commercial with Michael Jordan. Might have seen it, but they did a series with him. But one of the most hard-hitting ones is just him walking out of the locker room nice and slowly, like slow-mo, dramatic lights, and talking about all his mistakes, and said, I missed 1,000 free throws in my career. I missed this. I missed the game-winning shot X amount of times.
Yeah.
And then the final tagline was, but do you know what? I succeeded because I failed.
Yeah.
And because he failed, so like no one sees the failure. Everyone just comments on his successes, but he went for it again and again and again, and he had no fear to do so, and he's regarded as one of the greatest sportsmen of all time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. It's a mentality not just for sport, not just for tennis, just life with everyone who does anything. It's absolutely so important that you have to open yourself up to be able to make those mistakes. I love that you described as well what sounded like the perfect advert as well. Dramatic lights, walking down the tunnel. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's my profession, right? So.
Exactly. You've storyboarded that a million times, haven't you? Oh, yeah. I also think that when it comes to that sort of thing, we were talking earlier about social media clips, right? And how people just see the little bit of content that they want to watch, and then after 10 seconds, they might just completely miss the rest of it. It could be 10 minutes long. They've only watched 5-10 seconds. But, if that 5-10 seconds is him making that awesome game-winning shot, you're going to be like, yeah, brilliant. I'm going to watch that. Of course, I'm going to comment on that, like that. Okay, great. But you're not going to do it for the failure. You're just going to be like, rubbish.
Yeah, so exactly.
Yeah, maybe the culture is not heading in the best direction, but yeah, you got to keep showing those storylines.
I blame TikTok with its 10-second dance routines.
Oh God, yeah. Hey, I say that we have to put out TikTok reels as well to keep everyone interested.
I'm not knocking it. It's one of our fastest growing platforms from programs. Yeah, it's blowing up. We've got some of the videos on there. I've got 7-8 million views, and
wow.
just people. There's one that went viral recently with Zinchenko, which is I think he played for Chelsea football player. And
Arsenal
is he Arsenal now? Has he gone across? Yeah. There you go. So
that was last season, yeah.
He does a touch challenge, and he stops it. We have a ball launcher that launches as high as you want in the air. It's mental, and it came down, and it just stopped dead.
Really? Wow.
And that just went viral, and TikTok just exploded. We got so many views off that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've actually seen that. I feel like I've seen that. Whether I'm just really good at imagining something.
Yeah. You can imagine it. Just touch, come out the air. Yeah, you've seen it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you have more of those sorts of things with tennis as well, like the sort of in the pocket shots when they catch the ball in their pocket, coming down from really hard?
Not so much. I forget his name. Who's the old guy that plays a lot of doubles and does a load of like trick serves and stuff like that? I filmed with him before.
Bahrami?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. I've seen him live before as well. Yeah,
so good. Support. Yeah, so good. So film with him, and he does he's so difficult to film with as well, because you don't know what he's going to do. And ordinary
that's
pro,
the beauty of it.
Yeah, ordinary pro chucks the ball up. Oh, he's going to serve. I'll follow it. I'll follow the camera up. Follow it. Yeah, hit, done. He's chucked the ball up, and he's then knocked one out of his pocket, and you've missed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how it's hard to get a dramatic shot of that. It's more like a comedy routine.
Yeah,
I feel like you've got to go all the way back to Charlie Chaplin in order to catch that properly.
yeah, correct. Yeah, just massive wide. Just make sure you're getting everything all times, basically.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. I'm all out of questions, so that's great. I don't know if there's anything else that you particularly wanted to mention or talk about. Anything that you feel is really important about your job that people might not know. Like I say, feel free to riff.
Not really. I think like you and I have actually the questions you've asked, we've covered it quite a lot. Like with my job, obviously people are going to not know. They're going to always see the final outcome, so they're always going to see the end product of we filmed this, and they're never going to see what we actually go through to get that.
No.
So the majority of the time is so limited with the athletes because there's such a demand on them. They've got you'll be given your time by the brand. So let's say it's a Nike. Nike then within that time with the athlete, they'll have X amount of time per year or so many appearances per year with that athlete. In that time, they want their own content. They've probably given us time. Maybe they might have to do some mainstream media for an up and coming tournament, or do you know what I mean? So in that, they're just being pushed around to different places and go, right, now you're here with, this is Pro Direct, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. And if they're lucky, they might have seen a brief the night before. If not, their agent hasn't and just gone, yeah, you're going to do a bit of filming tomorrow. And they turn up and go, right, so what are we doing? But it's such a fast-paced, stressful environment for like 10 minutes. You're waiting around. You wait all day on set. You set up. You know what you're going to do. Athlete arrives. Bang, 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 bang. Got the shot. They're gone out of there. And then you'll get your odd occasion like Francis Tiafoe, who is happy to stick around and chat to you and stuff. But 9 times out of 10, the athlete is then moved on to the next brand or production company or whatever it might be. But even in those little snapshots of time, those little 10 minutes, 20 minutes with those athletes, you can still see the focus and what it took for them to get there. Because for them to be able to come on set and hold themselves with that kind of presence that they're here to do a job and they're going to get it done, and then they shake everyone's hand. They always, like I said, tennis players always thank you. They always go, thanks guys, thanks, and then walk off. It's just, it's definitely it's a privileged position I get to be in, to be honest, with what I do for my job.
That's fantastic. I think that's really nice to know as well, the fact that it's so fast paced. It's not like a sort of relaxed day where the players just get to chill out and take a few pictures, do a few videos. They're being pushed around probably at more of a stressful environment than maybe the court is for them, because the court feels natural for them, right? Whereas this is something completely out of their comfort zone.
100%. They just want to get back, do their recovery, maybe ice bath or massage or whatever they need to do to prepare themselves for that week. And they're getting pushed into an environment where they're not trained actors. They're not paid to be on camera. They're paid to play tennis, or they're tournaments and stuff. And they're an ambassador for that brand, and they have to switch on and basically do what we're directing them to do. And I do have quite a lot of admiration. Like myself, I hate being in front of camera. Like always keep me behind the camera and I'm fine.
Sorry then.
Yeah. Tonight's a little jarring, I won't lie.
But you've done well. You've done really well.
Thank you. So, but yeah, I do have utmost respect for how they conduct themselves, and like I said, there's definitely some memories and some stories that I'll be taking with me and telling in the pub when I'm old and grey.
Brilliant. Well, you've got ages to go until that, so you've got a whole career of way more people to interview, do some content with, and hopefully get that in the pocket trick shot that Bahrami wants to show you. Maybe with a comedy sort of angle behind it. You never know.
If I get that, mate, that will be my time to retire and sign off. I've done it all.
That would be it. Yeah. Now I've seen everything. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sparing your time for this, and I hope that everyone listening has found it really useful. So tune in next time to listen for hopefully some more entertaining guests and hopefully some more insight that honestly you won't find anywhere else. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Merlin. Cheers.
Hey there, tennis friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that episode, then you might want to click here for this one. See you there.